you, sir?
Doing well, thank you. Beautiful morning, nice and crisp.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I just did the dogs thing and a little spit in our area.
It's
Occasional
May, it's mid-May and it's 67 and 68. That's insane.
It has been nice. We had a real spring.
It
That doesn't
did.
happen all the time.
I know. It's usually it's like 85 degrees every day already, but it's been mild. So
It was last week.
it has been, yeah. No, I'm surprised it's still this cool. So especially, yeah, after last week, I thought for sure we were gonna go up and, so my kids are doing swim team, so that pool's gonna be cold.
The kids, every time I walk by the courts here, and the kids are outside, like, oh my god.
I know.
Still
Kids usually don't care all that much for cold. I mean, they just keep doing it anyway. But I'm like, I'll see you when you get out of the pool, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. All right. So I think, and that's it. And you're not worried about the cold anymore. Yours is about kids. And Bobby and I are thinking, all right, what's it going to be on like on court this morning?
is it going to rain? Right? Is it going to rain this afternoon? Chances are way lower these days. I mean, now I just checked. It was like 40%.
I'll take it.
Yeah, versus like I think it was like 60% earlier this week. They were calling for 60%. So cool.
I will take it. But we have, let's see, I think we're live everywhere. I think we're good to go. And we usually have a soft start to these things where I'll cut us in later for the podcast itself, and I'll give you a good introduction. Hey, it's Arturo. He's awesome. In this case, we assume, like I said, my wife already knows who you are. So
yeah.
Is listening, it doesn't need to know. Like I said, I'll wave at people on the Instagram back here, but otherwise we have a little bit of a feeling of talking among ourselves.
Okay, yeah, for sure.
Yet we do need to remember that they're the face baggers are listening. There are people out there trying to get us. Say, what did he say? Is he allowed to say that?
I know.
But
hopefully we don't get into any trouble from today's
right. Bobby, what do we put on the thing? It's like we want to have some fun and we want you to feel free, but we also don't want anybody to get fired.
Yes, I saw that on the email. Not trying to ruin anyone's careers. Yeah, that's a good start. Usually.
Yep, trying to help the careers.
Yes.
But if you can catch us up on, this will kind of be my soft introduction. If you can tell us who, because Bobby and I know who you are, of course. But if you can give us the 3 to 5 minutes of, who is Arturo? Where'd you come from? We know you as a tennis coach because you've been in the area for a long time, and now you've left, and now you're kind of still part of the industry, which is fun.
Yeah.
You get to still deal with knuckleheads like us.
Yes.
But tell us who is Arturo and what are you doing now?
Yeah, so born and raised in Caracas, Venezuela. So I played junior tennis, through my years and, at a high level. Good enough to get a scholarship in Jacksonville State, in Jacksonville, Alabama. So I went from Caracas to Jacksonville, Alabama. So that's a whole nother podcast all by itself. I played college tennis. I loved it. Great 4 years. And then I moved to Atlanta where my sisters were already living. And I started coaching at Windward Lake Club to start with in their academy in their heyday of Windward Lake Academy. And then from there, I kind of moved through towards the country club side of things, right? So from there, at that point, Windward also took over Creekstone, which is a big neighborhood in Cumming. And then from there, so I was kind of doing both for a little while. And then I went over to Sugarloaf Country Club, TPC Sugarloaf. And I was there for a year and a half or so with Daryl Lewis and some other guys there. Really great experience. It sort of kind of opened me up to that. With Windward, I had that academy, high level junior experience and what it's like to travel with these kids to tournaments, Rome, Georgia, and Columbus and Mobile and those places. But then the country club side of things just kind of opened me up to that, more like a service industry oriented, a little more about the member experience and what that looks like. So I learned a lot there. Then I went over to Standard Club and I was there. Kip Lehman hired me. It was great opportunities. It was a smaller program, so I had a chance to kind of get my hands into every program there. Plus 4 indoor courts, wasn't bad to deal with. So, it was never a rain out or too windy or too hot. So we always had our lessons, which was nice. Again, but I knew after kind of going into the industry, especially after Sugarloaf, that I wanted to become a director of rackets at a country club. So after Standard Club, I became director at Polo Golf and Country Club. And I did that for 4 years. And that was a really great experience. Fantastic members. I learned a lot there. Now, throughout all of these changes, right, Windward and Sugarloaf and then ending up at Polo, met my wife and 3 kids later. The coaching hours were not necessarily, super family friendly. So I left coaching really just because of that, wanting to spend more time with my kids and my wife. And so I did executive recruiting consulting for a year and a half. And the people that I worked with were fantastic, but it just wasn't me. And I kind of learned that maybe a year and a half into it. And then thankfully, I've been always interested. I always kept my eye on different things in the industry. And I was sort of kind of thinking about, I miss tennis. I miss the people that you meet through tennis. But the coaching hours, I just can't do it with my family. And thankfully, timing was right where Tecnifibre and Lacoste were looking for someone in the Southeast that was already living in Atlanta area that has experience, throughout these 20 years of me coaching at different clubs. I met a ton of different people in the academy business and the country club side of things, USPTA, PTR, USTA, Alta offices, just from being in the industry, as you guys know. And so it kind of was a really good marriage between my experience and what Tecnifibre and Lacoste were looking for. And so I've been with them since November of 2022. So yeah, that's where I am now.
Are you muted, Sean?
Dang it, I always mute myself. So what's I'm getting better about that now. Thank you. What's interesting about that? Like you said, okay, the recruiting wasn't you, but now you're doing this. And is it just because you're back a little bit in the tennis industry because personalities like me and like Bobby we're just so magnetic you can't not be around us? Is that what's
that's exactly it's part of my resume. Talking to you guys. Yes, I mean the recruiting, my wife goes to the best year and a half, best year ever. Because I was from coaching till late hours and putting events on weekends and socials and whatnot. I did recruiting for a year and a half, and it was no commute, no travel, no evenings, no weekends. So, it was awesome for the family. But because of working from home, I realized after a while that I wasn't getting used to it. I needed to see people. I needed to connect with people, and which I missed from the coaching side of things, right? So not just that, on top of the fact that meeting with tennis people, right? That's kind of the ultimate for me, right? It's like we speak a different language when it comes to tennis, right? And only a few people understand that. And so I missed that. So I knew I needed to see people, and I needed to be around people and just sort of have that interaction and growing those relationships. And so when Tecnifibre came about, I thought about like this could be really, really good because my office is my laptop, so I can work from anywhere, right? But because I have accounts throughout the city of Atlanta, I also have Alabama and Mississippi. I have to go see them every so often. I get to to connect with them. I get to travel not too far, and sometimes it takes me a day, sometimes it takes me 2 days, maybe an overnight somewhere. But throughout, I'm learning a lot of different things, right? So through my 20 years in the industry coaching, I became really good at knowing a lot of things about the Atlanta tennis industry, and especially the country club side of things, because that's what I did for like the last 15. But now I'm talking to a lot of people like you guys, like you, Sean, that have a different take, right? You don't do quite that country club side of things with tennis for children. in GoTennis, I'm talking to academies like UTAs and Cherokee Academy and all these academies in the area, seeing other country clubs. Like I went to Augusta Country Club a couple of weeks ago, like a month ago, and it's just all these places that after all this year I've never been to. So I'm learning a lot about different people. They have the tennis centers, the country clubs, the academies, the independent pros, and all of those. I'm sort of learning in how can Tecnifibre and Lacoste help and partner with these people at different levels. Not what the independent pro needs is not what a country club needs, right? And learning that, it's been a great 6 months learning that, and how can we partner with them and all these things. And so it's just been really, really good.
And that's where I want to hand you to Bobby and say, okay, can you guys talk about one of the things GoTennis is working on doing is helping, as you say, the independent pro, but then down to the end user, the person that actually gets the tennis racket. Because otherwise, we all know, I say we all, meaning the three of us, of course, we know how to run a pro shop in a country club because, we buy a racket for $100 and we sell it for $200 and we say, yay, we made money and the member got a racket. But it can't really work that way. I think, Bobby, you don't actually have a physical pro shop at Windermere. And
Correct.
So how does Arturo help somebody like you, where you actually have more maybe than a Rob Carver, who doesn't even have necessarily his own club, so to speak, more of a guy who comes to you? And how does Tecnifibre work with somebody like Bobby and those guys to really help that end user specifically?
Yeah, so again, the different approaches, right, depending on the person that of the business that we're talking to, right? I'm actually in talks with some independent pros to sort of figure out, okay, how are you getting, because independent pros, for example, they don't get anything in bulk. They can't afford it. They don't need it. Like a country club shop needs it, right? Let's say a country club shop might come in and need 20 balls at once, 20 cases of balls at once. An independent pro doesn't go through 20 cases of balls per year. So they a lot of times have to go to a retailer and pay retail pricing for those for balls or maybe even teaching equipments. So how we are, like I said, we're working with some independent pros of how can we Tecnifibre. One of the great things about Tecnifibre is that we don't have minimums. So if someone wants to just get a case or two of balls, we can help with that, right? If they want to get just a racket, they want to get a 10 under net, we can help that, right? So, which is the beauty of Tecnifibre being a little smaller company than some, that we're not going to require, hey, you want one case of balls, or we're only gonna want to send you 15. And so that kills that independent pro, that small business owner. So we are working on how can, what price points are they paying, how many cases of balls are they going through the year, what other materials are they using, where are they sending the clients, right? Someone needs a racket, where are they sending them to, right? Independent pros usually are connected to a retailer, right? And obviously when we do that too, right? So we obviously we big partners with Your Serve Tennis in Atlanta, and oftentimes we connect that independent pro to a retailer so that when a customer needs something, then they go straight to the shop. But also if maybe they live too far away from it, for Your Serve location. So then how can we partner up? So it really depends on the pro, on the size of the business, what the price points they're paying, and kind of what they want to do with their business. But we're open to every conversation. I think a lot of times what I'm finding is people is like, oh, I would love to work with you, but I can't because I only do a handful of cases, or I only need like a reel of strings every so often, and that's when I come in and say, okay, let's work it out, right? Let's work out a price point that works for you. We don't have any minimums, like I said, and the quality of the materials are really good. That's one thing I say, working with Tecnifibre and Lacoste, they don't make anything that is just putting a few things together and here's a tennis ball, right? Everything they do, it's of quality. It's meant to last for a while and not just be a one-time use and they're done. So that is a great thing to work for a company like that.
You did it again, I think. You muted it.
I was gonna say, Bobby, that's a different relationship than you're used to, right?
Well, historically, yeah, and that's what's so exciting about what they're doing is, and even just listen to Arturo, because, hey, like he said, the independent pro is not going to make you rich. Pro shop business is tough for everybody, let alone the independent guy who's worried about, like you said, I go through 20 cases, well, I do now, but I mean, an independent goes through 10 cases of balls a year or 20 cases of balls a year. You're not meeting any minimums, and they're asking for a lot. And part of the competitiveness of Atlanta is you want to be able, if you're that independent pro, you want to be able to offer something. Why do you choose me other than, unfortunately, too often convenience, price point of what the independent pro is teaching, and it goes against what we're trying to do, which is also build up the pro and show the value and the importance of finding a certified pro. So this is a great way to elevate the independent certified pro and show them, look at, because of the relationships they've created with the quality companies and quality people, that they're the reason why you want them in your subdivision for a couple hours a week as opposed to somebody else. So I right off the bat, I think that's awesome, and that's what got us excited. Obviously, we've known Arturo for a while. We've crossed paths worked in several of the same companies during time to time, but this was just, what they're doing is somewhat out of the box, and it's exciting, and hopefully other companies will follow into the equation with it. And talking about high quality too. I mean, we're not talking about, I tried to rep Mantis in this country for a little bit. It's a great racket, but there was no funding. And, you're just another component in the string industry. Arturo, talk to this, because I know most people, I said, we're in the industry, so we get it. Most people understand that the stringing business is really the pro shop's number one revenue producer.
Correct.
Everybody looks at the beauty of, oh, look at the great clothes. Clothes stink. Clothes cost you money.
Yes, they are for sure. Look, Tecnifibre has been a stringing company, and they've been around for a long time. Especially they're huge. Especially they're French. So a little background on that, right? Henry Lacoste obviously started. He founded Lacoste a long time ago, and they did great things, and obviously very popular brand. In about 2017, they figured out, do we want to go back to our roots, or do we want to continue kind of on that path that we're going? And they decided, let's go back to our roots, which is on in tennis and golf. So part of that, going back to the roots, was acquiring Tecnifibre, both into very high quality products, both French, headquartered in Paris. And through that collaboration, a lot of great things have happened, right? And obviously we have been lucky to have people like Daniil Medvedev and Iga. They're both, number one in the world at one point last year or a couple of years ago, and obviously still doing great and playing with our rackets and our strengths. And it just speaks of the quality of our product, right? I mean, you won't find that Walmart, brand at winning Grand Slams or being top 10 in the world or number one in the world. So it speaks very highly of that. And again, with that collaboration, Lacoste found himself as an innovator, right? An inventor. It was all about performance, elegance while you play tennis, right? He invented the tennis polo that we sort of take for granted now, right? Back in the day, they were playing basically with dress shirts in the 20s and so on. And so he introduced that. So he introduced things that were, that are now the fabric of our sport, right? And so that company now, Lacoste, again, acquiring Tecnifibre through that collaboration, heritage and history, Tecnifibre being one of, if you will, a new kid in the block. For a lot of people, they're doing a lot of things. So when it comes to everybody not everybody, but a lot of people know our strings, right? Strings is kind of what gives us our names, right? It's a great string. It's high quality performance. Again, played for many players on the tour. And so it's just an exciting time for a company to kind of take over the US market as we speak.
Well, and that's something interesting you told us about that I didn't even realize. And I'll let you let the cat out of the bag. How exciting! Obviously, you lease or you have licensing agreements with other stringers because Who makes Wilson's NXT string? Their most popular string? Where does that come from?
I will just have, on the grounds of liking my job, I will leave it.
We'll leave it like that. Just leave it out there. Okay.
Leave it at that. So,
You got it.
but yes, we make very high quality string. We own the process from beginning to end. So from raw materials all the way through production and sending it out to the customer. So again, it's a very exciting company to be part of, right? So because of the high level of commitment to to quality materials, right, throughout, right, anywhere from clothing to shoes to strings to rackets, and everything in between, grips and everything else, and balls obviously as well. So
well done.
And you posted
question.
We can erase that if we need to.
We'll cut it out. It'll be fine. But how do we get like the end user again? We talk about the player, and the player probably isn't doing that kind of deep down research as to where these things come from. And they're going to walk in and say, okay, and they're going to look at this wall of string and the wall of shoes. We might be more likely, because we've tried a bunch of different shoes and we know physically how they feel. So we might have a little more, we as the general player have a little more idea on rackets or shoes, but the string just, I'm guessing, is just this magic behind that. You've got to rely on the expert. You got to rely on, what are we relying on? The 17-year-old standing there at the stringer to go, no, you really want this string over here. And so what information can we hand out and say, okay, you guys, you make a great string.
Yes.
Okay. But you've got what, 47 different strings? Which one's right for me? How am I supposed to figure that out?
Correct.
String calculator out there that says I'm a 3-0 and I have a Wilson giant head snowshoe racket and I'm 48 years old and I'm 33 pounds overweight. What string do I need? Like how do we do that for the person at the end?
The end user? Yeah, I mean, educating the coaches is a big part of it, right? The not putting the wrong string or the wrong racket or the wrong weight of the racket on someone's string is huge, right? And we have to understand, again, I see myself a lot of times still as a coach, that if we put our clients, our customers, our members on the right equipment, they will enjoy tennis even more. And therefore, they will stay on it longer. Less injuries, they will perform better. They will just go home and talk about it with their spouse and their neighbors. And we, as a sports, we grow when we do that, right? So it's jobs like mine, it's educating, anyone that cares to listen to me, right? That even though you look at the pros on TV and they're exciting to watch and all that stuff, you're not a pro, right? You are, you play tennis on the weekends and maybe an extra time or two a week. You have a full-time job, and these guys live for tennis, right? They eat, they breathe, they train, everything is around tennis. So we can't really compare ourselves with some of those guys on the pro tour, but we can try to play as well as possible. With that being said, a lot of people maybe are on poly strings. They should be a little more on multi-filaments, right? That is softer on the arm, they're easier, for you to a little more pop. They're just going to play better for you. So it's our job as a company to try to get, how can we get more people to play with the right equipment, right? What's the equation, right? Like you said, I'm a 3-0, 45 year-old player. Like what should I play with, right? How many times a week do I play? And then that equation, right? For example, we talk about restringing rackets about at least twice a year. All right. But really it depends. So a good equation is, if you play tennis, let's say 4 times a week, you should probably string your racket 4 times a year. Right. And so on.
Is that a real thing? I've heard that before. I've even said that to people earlier in my career. I'm like, no, if you play 14 times a week, you need to play 4. Like, is that a real thing?
It should be. It should be, because think about this. And someone told me this. One of my friends told me this, and it's true. If you are not breaking your strings, the strings are breaking you.
Yeah.
meaning they're breaking your tendons, your elbows, your wrist, your hands, your shoulder, which is so important, right? We see so much tennis elbows and shoulder problems in tennis, right? And a lot of it has to do with the wrong equipment, right? Or the strain just being there for too long. So it's encouraging people that, yeah, it may be a small investment of $30-$40 to restrain your racket, but then you're going to be able to keep playing for years and years and years versus you don't strain your racket, you play, you get injured, and you're out for 6 months. And so that education that needs to happen, and we are doing, but of course it takes time, educating the end user, educating the coach to believe in that it's okay to strain your racket. Don't wait till it has to be breaks. Some people, they have no choice, they break all the time, so great. Right, but those people that are playing and they're only breaking, I know women that I used to coach never broke string, right? So they thought, well, do I need to string my racket, right? And so we're trying to be like, well, especially before alta season, let's string your racket before spring and before fall alta. So it's at least something there, and we try to stay with it and whatnot. But like you said, it's educating the end user and the coach that if you're not breaking string, the string is probably breaking you.
Bobby,
well, I think that's
sorry, Bobby, before I forget, hold that thought. So, Bobby, you're going to start now offering the Windermere Stringing Special. It's a monthly cost of $7 a month, and we'll string your racket as often as you need. And we'll just have a subscription, like Roger Federer shoes that come in the mail when we just ship them back when they get dirty, right? We just have this subscription, a monthly payment. We'll string your racket whenever. Okay, sorry, crazy idea. Bobby, go on.
No, like Arturo said, first of all, if you're playing 5 days a week and you're not breaking strings, you might want to fire your coach or just, figure out what you might have the wrong racket. Lot going on there.
Yes.
But one of the other things, another part of the equation, which I always used to get a kick out of, and I can give them a little bit of a hard time because they theoretically do not exist. The pro shop that we worked with in Alpharetta, I would send in the player with what I wanted them to, and they would come back with something different. And I'd be like, guys, they're in the business of selling to you. I'm in the business of improving your game. And let's start with the rackets. The 45-year-old, I'm learning how to play, and I'd say, go get something that's going to provide a control. Do you want to get better? Are you in this for I want to play. And they'd come back with the snowshoe, weighs 6 ounces. I'm like, would you give this, if a kid walked in the door and said, I'm a beginner and I want to learn how to play tennis, would this be the racket you'd hand to a child? Well, then don't hand it to the adult. Yes. Because they're going to be hitting it just as far out of the ballpark as the kid would. And, we're not going to get anywhere. So, how do you bridge that gap? Not just the pros, because I agree with you. The pros did a terrible job when we introduced poly in this country. Everybody strung it too tight. Oh, well, I'm stringing my racket at 58. Oh, yeah, go ahead. String poly at 58. Let's see how you feel. Where other countries were way down in the mid 30s years ago. And it took us a long time to get there. How do you convince not only the player, the coach, and the pro shop to get all on the same page?
Yeah, I mean, it's a process, right? I mean, it takes a little time, but yes, poly for the most part, a lot of weekend players, right? USTA Alta adult players shouldn't be on poly, right? There should be a multi-filament. They're easy on the arm, right? We actually, interestingly enough, we created something. It's called Triax. It's a string that it has both multi-filament fibers and poly fibers weaved together to make it. It's a poly feel, but it's a multi-filament string. So a lot of people that think they should be on poly, that's a string that we recommend a lot to a lot of people. It's friendly on the arm, but it's going to give you that sensation of playing with a poly, but it's not going to kill your arm. It's not going to kill your elbow, right? But for a lot of those people, really, we have two main multi-filament strings. One's called X1 biphase. It plays really, it's a multi-filament, but it plays a lot like a natural gut because it's uncoated. It goes through a two-part process, and it's very crisp, right? And it's very much about that feel and touch that you need a lot for the country club players. And the NRG too, which is again another string. It's very comfortable. It's coated, but so it's a little different, premium fibers. So I would say between, if you talk about Tecnifibre and our strings, right? You got X1 biphase and NRG on the multifilament. You got the triax that's sort of in between that poly and multifilament. And now we just introduced Razor Soft, which is a string that is what Medvedev switched to at the beginning of 2023, and he's done really well with it. And because again, when you think about Medvedev, he's playing 10 feet behind the baseline, needed a little more power, and we were working on it. And then halfway through last year, he came to Tecnifibre and be like, hey, I want to change something about my game, but it's not the racket, because he's already playing with the T5 305 that, from us. He kind of played with the tension. It wasn't it. And then we said, well, we're working on this string, and why don't we give it a try? He was already playing with the Razor Code, which Iga still plays with. But again, when you think about Iga, she plays closer to the baseline, so she needs a little more control versus power. Medvedev playing 10 feet behind the baseline, right? He needs a little more power, and then he's used to getting that control from the string. So anyway, we came out with Razor Soft, which is what Medvedev is now using. And again, back to my point, Razor Soft being a premier poly string, but it's softer on the arm. So, we really believe this string is going to become our best string in the market, just because it's going to talk to everyone that wants to play with poly, or is playing with poly, but it's a little softer, but it's not a cheap string. It's a softer poly that is premier. I mean, if Medvedev is winning the Miami Open with it, it's probably good for you too, right? And again, you should, but back to your point, Bobby, it's really trusting the coach you're working with, right? And that, which is why it's so important that even with independent pros, we need to get them, make sure that they are staying up to date with all these things. They are getting certified. I believe that there shouldn't be, I listen to your podcast, a lot of people just popping up the trunk and going out and teaching and leaving. And we need to be better, right? Tennis needs to be better on that, right? We need to incentivize these coaches. Why it's important to be certified and stay certified. And again, I think companies like Tecnifibre and Lacoste, we can help with that, right? Educating, because as you get certified, maybe we can kick something back to you, right? It could be a racket, it could be strings, right? It could be a pair of shoes. So there's something there for them as well, right? As well as you're going to stay connected with the industry and the trends, right? And, back in the day, like that big racket that it's 120 square inches or 115, that's, again, technology has gone a long way. So we don't need that anymore for power. I see that a lot when I'm doing demo experiences. And we have these people that have these humongous rackets, and they think, well, I can't get power anywhere else. And it's like, well, your racket is 15 years old, so the racket is dead, essentially. Yeah. Technology. Our biggest racket that we make is 105 square inches. Everything else is either it's 100 or 98, because really your power is going to come with a better frame, with the right string and the right tension, right? And then you add the right coach to it, and then your game can really take off, right? We believe in that. We don't make that big 115, 120 square inches because we don't believe in it. We believe that, again, the power is going to be coming mainly from a new technology on the racket, the strings, and the tension.
I want to wonk for one more second. I know we're going in, but it's a great point. I think people, when they think technology, immediately jump to the racket. I need a new racket. Where you talk to the pros, I remember when Agassi he said, forget about the racket. He said, these strings I can't miss. Yes. They hold the ball so long, I can hit it as hard as I want. Most of the players, just go do this. They don't think of it. They go price point too often. And it's unfortunate because the string really does more, is an equal partner as the racket.
Correct. And you can tinker with the strings so much, right? You can change strings, you can change the tension, you can maybe do a hybrid setup. There's so much you can do with the string. So which you're not going to change rackets every couple months, or you know what I mean? So obviously finding the right racket is important, but then figure out which tension, which string works for you, right? And that's where the coach helps. That's when companies like us help educating those people of like, why would I recommend this string and this tension for you versus, what that. But yeah, price point is obviously a big factor. But yeah, a lot of times you get a price point and it's a cheap string that is going to just give you a terrible experience playing tennis, and you won't come back, or you won't play as often. you only play once in a while. But if you have a great experience, then you might play twice as much, 3 times as much. So that's why we have to convince the coaches that that's the way to go.
And it's a great point. When we had lunch the other day, we laughed that we talked about the importance of having your students walk off the court smiling, because they're going to remember the lesson. So, how do you construct a lesson? And it's true. It's the positive reinforcement. Whether you're dealing with juniors, adults, you want them to play again. If they play again, they're going to get better through osmosis. So that's an important ingredient. And, the equipment is and we saw that during the pandemic, that rackets, tennis supposedly went up exponentially. Well, it was a bunch of Walmart rackets that got sold because they were accessible. How many of those people were retained, and how many did we lose because you go out there, or even worse, when you see the junior out there with the full size light racket that the ball weighs more than, and you wonder why they can't control the ball. It's like, well, there's nothing about this equation. It's math, guys. Nothing about this equation is working. How do we get the players in? And again, I love what you guys are doing. And I think it's important for the Tecnifibers of the world to keep the good fight, because the bigger brands historically cannibalize their lines. They make it very difficult for the small guy to enter. So, Arturo, speak to some of the things you guys are doing from a promotional standpoint to try, as you said, educate and overcome the barriers that the Wilsons put up, because it is important. What you guys have done has influenced the way Wilson builds their rackets. And, people don't understand that either. They just say, oh, Wilson came up with a new racket. Well, because they're getting heat. They need to,
Yes. Yeah. So look, we, doing a lot of, we call them demo experiences, again, because of that education, being out in the marketplace with the people, being where tennis is being played, right? Whether that is tournaments, where that's social events, charity events, and being part of that education is a huge part. We believe strongly on our brand and what we're doing with our equipment, right? Whether it's rackets, whether it's grips and strings, even our balls. We have when you talk about balls, like to your point, Bobby, a lot of the US market, it's a lot about price point. And we see that a lot when it comes to balls, right? It's what are you paying for balls, but what kind of ball are you getting, right? It's a Costco ball. I mean, it can't be any good, right? I mean, because Costco is not a tennis store. Costco is great. I mean, I got 3 kids, so I'm in Costco every week, but I'm not going to Costco for tennis balls or tennis rackets, right? And again, with Tecnifibre being a French company in Europe, the balls are more about durability than it is about price point. So our balls are a lot more like they have a higher concentration of natural wool. So it has a truer bounce. Even our core, it's natural. So we call it the natural choice for our balls because they're going to last longer and they have natural materials built into that. Versus some of the balls in the market here are, again, because of the price, they're synthetic fibers. It's what it's inside of the ball. So it's not giving you, it's going to be cheaper, but it's not going to give you that true bounce, that true experience. It won't last as long either. But yeah, so back to your point, Bobby, educating, being part of the industry, being part of being in the, where tennis is being played. And that takes time, but we also feel like once as that catches on, like a fire, right? Starts small and it catches on, and next you can contain it. And we believe that over time, we can educate our customers and our coaches that this is the way to go.
So and we talked about it. We looked at some of your clothes, even with Tecnifibre. I was like, wow, you wore the vest. I was like, can I try that on? I want to see if it fits. How can people, because a lot of this stuff isn't carried yet. Yes. Can people go to your websites and pick and buy clothes, even though they might not be able to find it, even on the big, online retailers?
Yeah. So we have a website called tfselect.net, which is almost like an online catalog, if you will. The best way for now, it's you can use that as a reference point, but the best way would be to reach out to me, and then again having that conversation with the rep for the area, which happens to be me, and how can we work together, right? So a lot of people is like, well, I want this or that. And some people, if it's a customer, I might say, hey, go to Bobby's shop, right? Or go to the Your Serve Tennis and we have that there. But if it's not, a lot of times we are able to open accounts for customers, not customers, for clients that they might not feel like, oh, we don't have any minimum. So, maybe Bobby, like you said, like if you have an account with us and you need clothing for yourself or your staff, we can help you with that. And there's a lot of people that don't know that. And it's just really a matter of, hey, give me a call and we can discuss and see how we can, help you out.
Well, like I said, I think it's great. It's great for the industry. It's great that they have somebody like you out there pounding the pavement, educating people, because that's really where it starts.
Yes.
To make people know that what the alternatives are, and that keep looking, because you might not necessarily. Everybody's got their own niche of the business, and and if you truly want to improve, it's a multifaceted need to improve. You're just not going to focus on one aspect. One thing we love, and I encourage everybody, you posted some great pictures of the setup you just did in Druid Hills Country Club. That's awesome. And this way people can see, just because you want it, it's got a friend of mine got into the drink business one time, and he extolled on all the great benefits of this drink. I said, did it taste good? Well, no, but it does. You remember Power Bars? Those things, you couldn't eat them. They were horrible. They gave them away. They sponsored every event you could go to. But I mean, not only is your stuff quality, it looks good. Yes. So I encourage everybody to go to Facebook, check out what's out there.
Yeah, what I love, and again, Your Serve Tennis carries our Lacoste, but I love when I present to a client, especially one that has never considered Lacoste for their shop or even for their staff, and I bring like a Lacoste or even a Tecnifibre jacket or shorts or shirt, and they're blown away. They just the quality, how it feels, the shoes are comfortable. I got a few of our directors in Atlanta wearing our shoes, and they're very picky with their shoes, and they're just like, this is so comfortable. And for a tennis coach, as you know, Bobby and Sean, you're on your feet all day long, right? So like having the right shoe, back to being on the right equipment, right? You can get a pair of shoes for like $40 probably, yes. But then you're going to be like dying at night with pain and probably waking up with foot pain and dreading going back to the court next day. So it's about really investing. And again, it's not heavily. I don't think we outpricing the market. Investing a little bit in your equipment, as a coach, in shoes and clothing that make you look professional. In the right strings, and also learning about what are the right strings for my customers and even what are the right shoes for my customers and all that stuff. So really, it's about opening, we like to tell people, open your mind to the new kid on the block, right? We are, again, we're not a brand new company, but we are, in a sense, in the US market, newer. And it's really a matter of people understanding that, right? And that we know what we're doing. And if you give us a chance, then I think with customer service and the quality of our products, we're going to blow you away.
Well, and I hope, and I always laugh, obviously, the Babolat blueprint, you started in stringing, you build a following. I remember when Volco came in and we were involved with Volco, and they made 4 good rackets. And we were like, hey, this is great. If you're a decent coach, you should be able to find, if you got 4 to pick from, you should be able to find something suitable. Oh, well, we're going to expand. And well, they went American, and they expanded the line way too big, and they lost their way for quite a few years. And, really never took that next step with the V1 around 2000, 2001 was probably one of the highest selling rackets in Atlanta, especially. Now, I think we talked about you guys are doing something with a dampener system in the grip as well.
Yeah, so one of our rackets, the TFX1, comes in 3 different weights, and it has dampening system built into the racket, which is actually something that Henry Lacoste first invented. Again, he thought himself as an inventor. He invented that back in the day in the 40s or whatever it may be, a long time ago. And the the dampening was sticking outside of the grip. So it just looked terrible. So it just didn't work out. So it never caught on. But through that collaboration between Lacoste and Tecnifibre, they were able to figure out how to put it inside of the grip. And And again, if you Google TFX1 and you see the bottom cap, the butt cap, if you will, then you don't see the traditional. It says it's called X-Damp, and what it does, it takes a third of the vibrations won't go through your arm, because the dampening system built into the racket is going to help that. Now, a lot of people ask me, well, that way I don't need a dampening in my racket, and that's not necessarily true, because the dampening, what it does, it goes either, if you as we know tennis, obviously, so if you grab your racket and you kind of hit it against your hand, and you don't have a dampening, then it's going to go ping, right? It's going to go longer. But if you have a dampener, it's just going to go a little drier, right? Yeah. So, and people have that sensation like, well, if I hear less, the racket is going to vibrate less, but that's not necessarily true. The vibrations still go through the frame and go through your arm. So again, with this racket, which has been really, really good at the country club level for those weekend players that have experienced tennis elbow, that it's a perfect racket to try because of that. It just plays soft. It has a great power, but it plays really nicely because of that dampening system built in. So we encourage people to try that.
And you're going to tell me I don't need my Tennis for Children dampener?
No, you can. I do. No, you put it on. You put it on because really that's more about the sound of it. The dampening, what it does, it mutes the sound of the pinging of the racket, of the strings, if you will, but it doesn't necessarily get rid of the vibrations coming through the racket through your arm, right? So the dampening that we built into the TFX1 does that. The dampening system the dampener that you use on your strings, by all means, keep it on. I play with a dampener in my racket.
I won't play without one, but you're going to tell me that doesn't actually dampen the vibrations. It just
not nearly as much as it what it does. It dampens the sound of the strings, but it doesn't dampen the vibrations per se. The vibrations are still happening.
And the most important thing, it will not drive your pro crazy when you don't have the dampener on and we have to listen to that sound all day.
Yes.
You can tell immediately when somebody doesn't have where's your dampener? You will now, because I don't want to hear that racket without a dampener on it. So yes, that's the big thing, is that sound. We all know the sound when the dampener's not on.
Yeah, no, but dampener for Tennis for Children, that's a great tool for promoting your business. So please keep it on.
Okay, I appreciate that. And tell the kids just love it because it looks fun.
Oh yeah. So now similar to my kids are playing, and my older two kids are playing, and I put them on a dampener on the racket, a Tecnifibre dampener, and they just think it's the greatest thing in the world. It's just a little rubber thing, but they're just like, oh, look at me, and so they compare rackets to see which one has a better dampener. So
personalization definitely matters.
Yes, for sure.
And I'm sure we can talk forever. Bobby, you got anything else technical we can do today?
Well, I just want to point this out to everybody, especially to the people that are watching associated with them here. Just the importance of a good woman in your life. Look at your gentleman's backdrop as opposed to mine. You have nice artwork. I have a 17-year-old daughter obsessed with Walt Disney World. Therefore, I have Iron Man and Mickey's wizard hat. That's my idea of artwork. I just couldn't help myself. Look at them. Wow, they have such nice backdrops, and I have toys. I like toys. That's all.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't buy that behind me. My wife did. Most definitely. So.
Okay, now I'm gonna be self-conscious about the background. Is it pointed properly? Do I need to make sure it's angled? Honey, how does the art look in the
Well, too funny. But yeah, it's funny you said that, Bobby, because it's important with that woman in your life. It's important, like in tennis, it's very important with the right coach in your life. Right? The right coach can really help you maximize your game to that next level, right? Obviously with the right technique and the right footwork and all those sort of things, but also the right equipment. And a tennis coach can really, really help you with that. And I pride myself when I did that as a coach, right? To getting people in the right frame and the right string and, getting them, versus whatever, just buy something. When people will come with like a Costco or Walmart bought racket, I use it as a joke, but I would put it on the trash can and I would give them one of our demos. And they were like, what do you mean?
I absolutely do. And they've come a long way, but the head titanium racket, when it first came out, was a big seller because of the theory behind titanium makes it lighter.
Yeah.
And then you hear the actual story behind that. It was titanium paint, and it was a titanium bond, which bonds a little bit better, is a little stronger. And so therefore it made it a little lighter, but titanium really had nothing to do with the racket. On top, it was 7.9 ounces. On top of it was a huge, I always tell it, look, buy another one and use them as snowshoes, or I throw it. I'll pretend like I'm throwing it. I said, there's nobody, let alone a big guy, should be walking around with a 7.9 ounce tennis racket. You're going to be doing things that are ultimately going to lead to injury. Yeah. And, again, it's a good part. As you said, it's a multi-faceted process. That's why, what we're trying to do is educate, make it affordable, use, companies like yourself that are trying to get in saying, hey, we want to work with you, because we got to make it where the coaches, not every coach and player is a good fit. That's a great part about a club. Hey, you and I, we can be friends, but we do it, different motivations. Go see this guy, and you're not worried about losing money. Same thing with rackets, same thing with strings. Make the industry working together so we can promote more players means more money for everybody. And that's what we're trying to do. And that's why we were so excited meeting with you and speaking with you and said, hey, what can we do now to take the next step? So Arturo, we thank you. And Sean, take it away. I'm done. No more artwork.
Thank you.
That's a good compliment. But Arturo, we always finish with a king of tennis question. And it's coming, so I'll just jump right in. If you were king of tennis for a day or however long it would take, do you have any ideas as to what you would do or change if you were king of tennis?
El rey of tennis.
Yeah,
I thought about this a lot, right? And I had all these ideas or obviously after years in the industry, there's a lot, right? So, locally, I would get Alta and USTA to sit down together and work together versus compete against each other. All right, work together. How can we work together? For example, like one example that I hated when I was coaching is that Alta will have an 8-game pro set for juniors, but then USTA was a 2 4-game sets with no outscoring, a type. I mean, scoring along is really hard for a kid. And if you tell me that these 2 months of the year I played this format, and then kind of when I'm getting it, now you're going to change the format for the summer, and then again back to the fall, but I am confused. And I was like, guys, let's get together. Let's so Alta and USTA getting together locally, I would do that. But the biggest one that I kept coming back to it's I would love for the King of Tennis to figure out how we can have the data to, tennis is a feel-good sport. And a lot of times, we talk about tennis as like, oh, it loses money in the country club side of things, right? People may join for the golf, right? But a lot of times they stay because of the tennis, right? And traditionally speaking, the guy plays golf and the lady and the kid play tennis. But a lot of times those clubs wouldn't exist without tennis, because then the guy wouldn't necessarily have an excuse to join. And so I think we have gotten away a little bit away from the director of tennis or rackets now, or being a true director of rackets, managing and not so much about glorified head pro, right? There's way too many directors of rackets and tennis are spending way too much time on the court and not enough time managing the facility, their pros, coming up with events and running those events for the members. We're spending way too much time on the court teaching, and it's sort of preventing, and it's taking people away from the industry. And we got to figure out, again, my keynote tennis would be figure out how can that we can have data of say like, no, this is an important piece to bring in more staff so that the director continues to direct, to manage, and not sip into becoming basically another head pro in the industry or in the club, in the staff. So that's the one thing that I came up with the most. That and that this might be unpopular, but I would love for women's tennis to play 3 out of 5 sets in majors. I really would. I know that's not popular opinion. Maybe it's because I grew up with 2 sisters that play college tennis, and they both are amazing players, and they're both Hall of Famers in their colleges, and I'm not. And I enjoy watching them growing up. I mean, my especially my bigger sister, we watch her. I grew up watching her play tennis, and my little sister as well. We play tennis together. I would love for women tennis to also be 3 out of 5 because I enjoy how a 3 out of 5 match develops in different than a 2 out of 3 set. And maybe we can start with the final is 3 out of 5 and see how it goes for a couple of years, and maybe semi and finals if it goes well, and kind of see. That would be another thing that I would do as a king of tennis. But again, it's just I know it's not popular, but personally, I would enjoy it.
I think that's awesome because again, you don't think about it. I mean, the majority of the people that win at a professional level, you win the first set, you usually win the match.
Oh yes.
I mean, the percentages are really high. Yes. So, there's a great point to that. You have to play a different match. Think about how many Novak matches down 2 sets that he's come back to win.
I know, and that's the beauty of it. I think that 3 out of 5 sets is what made Novak and Rafa and Federer who they are, because no one can beat them in 3 out of 5. They can beat them 2 out of 3, but they just can't figure out because of that mental fortitude, because of the physical abilities that these guys have. And I would love to see in the women's tennis, to see who really can do that. So that to me would be something that I would implement. But again, that's more of an outlier. But for me, it's more, how can we make that director of rackets tennis be more in the office and more spending time managing the facility and their pros and the staff and all that stuff versus 10 hours in the court.
I like that. And that's one of the things we've been in touch with Jonathan Freilich, who's director of racket sports for Invited.
Yes.
And I think they're doing something similar, or they're looking to do something similar in Peachtree City to bring in a non-teaching role, somebody really to pay attention to the club itself. So I think he would agree with you in that. And that's probably a good thought. The problem there is, and I always try to push back when somebody says, hey, we need to do this as King of Tennis. Problem there is we say, okay, we want to make it more affordable, but we want to have people make more money. In this case, if we say, hey, we want to bring in a non-teaching role, now you've got to pay me and I'm not bringing in my own revenue. So then you just got that money question that we've got to figure out.
100%. No, I mean, it's not an easy.
Pickleball comes in. That's the godsend of pickleball. Pickleball is new. You can, the curve is up for money making. Take all the money you make from pickleball, invest it back into your tennis program or into your rackets program, because that is a revenue source right now. That is a differentiator going on in the sport that we could take advantage of. You're exactly right, but that is it. We've been given that. So now is the time to take advantage of it, is to take the pickleball money and say, look, we're going to give this back to everybody. And everybody's experience is going to be, we're going to be able, because what's the number one, there's no leagues yet. So daily I get, well, is there a pickleball league? No. So I don't like to say no. Nobody likes to say no. And, historically we'd be able, well, nobody's jumped in yet outside of Alta. After this season, this summer, it'll change a little bit. But I think that's a great way to do what Arturo is saying. And also, again, goes back to education, that when you get so many of these subdivisions, do you know when you get to say that you have a director, the value of your home goes up? This is stuff that the GPTA should be screaming from the top of the mountain. We have value, guys, because as Alta will tell you, the entry is the barrier to the sport. People want to play Alta per se. They don't know who to call.
Yes.
How do I play Alta? How do I get in, meet a team, find a facility? And as we've learned just through conversations, there's a lot more problems inner city because there's not the court availability we have out here, where every subdivision has got numerous courts. There's court crunches in some parts of the cities, believe it or not. So I agree. And I think but that's the pickleball solution right there. I'm sorry, I'm done. It was art and now.
Good.
You said you were done, but we don't believe you anymore.
We're never really done. Never really done. We probably should, because some of us have to find something to do with our day. Is it going to rain today? What do we have?
It's just raining right now. I'm in Alpharetta and it's raining outside of my window.
Okay, Bobby, you're incoming. It looks. What do we got? We got sunny out the back there. Your bedroom window there. There's no.
That's just a lot of light. I don't know. Let's see here. I've been accused of having a terrible weather app anyway, so I'm useless.
Oh, we'll have to update it. We'll have to update the weather app.
My weather app is going outside and going like this.
Is that now? That's good. And if we're outside a lot, that works. So,
that's right.
Arturo, what are you doing now? What are you doing for GoTennis? You and we're talking about what's coming up with us. We've got some plans, some super secret plans. What's good for you right now? Bobby, you looked like you had an idea.
I want to say something because I know he's going to be too humble. All the donations he's just made to the various pros across the city, how Tecnifibre is helping out. Sean, you can speak on that, but I wanted to make sure that he gets props and people are aware of how much they're giving back as well to various organizations in the community to get people, young players, tennis rackets in their hands. Okay, this time I'm really done.
Okay. But and yeah, I will, because that's one of the things we're doing is Tennis for Children. I'll do my shameless plug, which because of Arturo and Tecnifibre, we have a free racket deal going on through the summer. So if you register for summer tennis, which tennis is usually down in the summer unless you're running a camp, so those weekly classes slow down. But we give you a free Tecnifibre racket as supplies last. I have to say that, right?
Yeah.
But because of Tecnifibre's donations, because of what Arturo's doing for us specifically, and I know a few others, you've spoken to a few others, AYTEF, Ben Hestley, I think you've spoken to. So we've got quite a bit of that going on. Arturo's doing a great job of that, and we really appreciate that, because that is going to take away that barrier. If the entry is the barrier, here's a good way to do it, that we can get you in at least a decent junior racket. And then in that case, we say, hey, I look like Medvedev out there, or Iga, right?
Yes, or Chris Eubanks, which is local.
Oh, even better. We got to talk to him too.
Yes. Yeah. But no, thank you, Bobby and Sean. Yeah, look, I love that I get to help out different organizations that are introducing tennis to kids. So I'm really excited that we're able to do that with you guys and a few other organizations. And, that's, again, part of our mission. We want to be in the grassroots of tennis, right? So when these kids are starting playing tennis, we want them to be with Tecnifibre. So we're happy to make donations, to be part of it. And we are donating some stuff to an Alzheimer's events out of White Columns. I know Bobby used to be there, that it's happening Memorial Day weekend. Because again, we want to be part of the industry, part of the fabric of what makes tennis in Atlanta.
Part of the
Thank you for that.
of what makes tennis in Atlanta. All right, hang on, I'm gonna write that down. That's good stuff from Arturo. So what do you have now? You got anything special going on, or are we just gonna make sure we keep working with GoTennis and see if we can get something up for our members?
Yeah. So we're gonna work together on that. That's gonna take some time to figure out the logistics. But yes, look, anyone that is listening to here or thinks that we can partner up, give me a call or email me, and my email is anieto@tecnifibre.com. Just don't be afraid. I mean, there's just any conversation could lead to something pretty significant, right? And again, I think there's a lot of things that we can do, and a lot of people, like I was having dinner with a group of friends, and someone saw like a demo experience that I had at a country club, and they're like, oh man, I wish you could do this for us here at our subdivision. I'm like, I can't. This is not just for country clubs. Like you and me and your pro and I can figure out a good night and let's go. I mean, because again, I love being around people. I love talking tennis. So hey, it's a good for me anyway. Selfishly, I love doing that. So
then it's a good fit.
Yes, it's a very good fit.
Good. Well, Arturo, I appreciate it. And we will definitely be in touch, because we've got some, like I said, some super secret things coming up between GoTennis and Tecnifibre and Lacoste, and we'll get those things running. And otherwise, we will make sure that what you're doing gets put out, and make sure that you and Bobby are connected. I know you and I are already doing some things with Tennis for Children, and we'll tell everybody the great work you're doing.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. And I love your podcast and what you're doing, and talking to all these different people from the first one, through, now me. But I love the fact that you are talking to all these different people in the industry. And I mean, I've learned just from listening to the podcast, I learned what people are doing and how they went through the pandemic, and other things that they're going through, and obviously pickleball, and how does that either affect or not, and all those sort of things. And so keep it up.
And our fine eye for interior design.
Yes, that's you, Bobby. That's definitely you. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And we're out.
And